Good afternoon and welcome to Liberty and Gun Rights Podcast. I think this is episode 16. I've got Guy Beveridge here, and we're going to be talking about, what are we going to be talking about?
Church.
Security in houses of worship. There we go. So Guy, I want to let you take it away and introduce yourself and what you're passionate about. I know you're passionate about liberty and gun rights. And we've had a couple of conversations about you coming onto the podcast and sharing uh, uh, information or just what we're passionate about. Both of us. I mean, I volunteer on our safety team at church, and we've got like 30 members. And I know that you are very involved in providing safety and security through your church. And so I thought this would be just a perfect topic for Liberty and Gun Rights Podcast.
Yeah. Hey, James, you can't be from the United States of Texas and not love liberty and gun rights for sure. So it was too easy to jump on the podcast with you. I started out my career in the United States Army, working a little bit or with some special operations groups and within these special operations groups. I transitioned out of that after a number of years and then went right into law enforcement here in Texas. Did that, all the, SWAT teams, sniper teams, all that kind of stuff. But then the skill sets I had from the military were needed overseas in Iraq during 2004, 2005, 2006. So I hitched up with a couple of private military contracting companies, working mainly with CIA type groups over there, following up on WMD stuff, did up close executive protection for some people, did long range protection for some people as well in there. Managed to get myself shot 3 times and blown up all in one day. Zero stars, do not recommend, would not do that again. Came back to the US, went back into law enforcement at a reserve level, and this gave me the opportunity to get into corporate America. I started helping out corporate America, Fortune 500 companies like Walmart, their logistics side, their warehouses, Brinks Global, stuff like that, with their safety and security. Really, at that scale, it's really, really interesting. But all the same tenets still apply, whether you're at a Fortune 500 company or a church. Safety and security is safety and security. Did
Right.
that had a great time with that for a number of years. Got another contract this time to go to Africa off the coast a little bit near Somalia, doing some anti-piracy stuff. I'll just leave that at that. And came back to the U.S., went back into law enforcement. I'm a law enforcement. I'm a police chief, a county police chief, I guess you would call it here in Texas. We label ourselves as constables out here for that role, have deputies and budgets and all that. But I had a really calling still to the corporate world on doing the safety and security missions, helping them with and doing some consulting for them and some training for their folks. And then out of that was born the church safety and security side, or the house of worship side, from that side of the business. I'll just tell you, quite frankly, what I do is I use the secular side of my business to help fund the church side of the business. And churches just need it. They need safety and security more than ever before. There are churches that do a really, really good job. Sounds like your church has a great team. When you get 30 people that are volunteers, that's fantastic. But
Right.
most churches aren't like that. And even, still we see some pastors who are anti-church safety and security. And so, maybe today we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll have to make sure we're guarding our heart and our minds and really speaking into this for the pastors and for those teams out there today.
Right. Yeah, we employ 2 off-duty Charleston police officers that are in full uniform, have their patrol cars on property, and they're very visible in our fellowship hall at our main entrances, and we we really have never had a lot of problems at our church. We've been going there almost, I don't know, 15, 16 years, and I helped establish the safety team, and we've had a couple of parents that are in the middle of a divorce. One of the parents would try to come pick up one of the other children, or the children that they were not supposed to pick up. They weren't the custodial parent. They were on the other side of the equation. Typically, it's the dad, right? And
Yeah. Yep.
so we have a very organized and structured children's ministry, and you have to have you check your child in, you get a badge that you put on your shirt, and nobody's allowed into the children's area unless they have one of those, name tags on, and we can identify that they indeed have children in the children's ministry. And we check people in and we check people out. And so we have a very structured and organized children's ministry. It's probably our highest priority at the church, is to make sure the kids are safe. And we've had some homeless people come in, and you know we've had some homeless people come in and sit in the back of the sanctuary and actually watch the service, and never really caused any problems. So we don't stop that. We don't go out of our ways to look for those people, but we have a wooded area behind our church, and so sometimes they'll wander out and come in and look around. And we have snacks and drinks and stuff. So in our snack bar area and fellowship hall. And but anyway, yeah, we have a probably, I think, 48 cameras. That we have a volunteer that watches cameras every service. And we have radios and we have rovers, and it's very, very organized. And I'm very happy and proud to volunteer for that team. I'm ex-law enforcement from Texas, and I didn't spend quite as much time in law enforcement as you have. I got out of it in 1990 when I got married and got into information technology. But I have um, I really support law enforcement and first responders, and I know how tough it is to put on the uniform and some of the things that you guys and gals go through on a daily basis. And so I have a lot of respect, and I appreciate your service, and thank you for that. And so anyway, as well as I do, if when you get into church safety, security, and law enforcement, there are story. I mean, back in 1980, I don't have any of the statistics right here in front of me. I could look it up and research it again, but there was a church in Texas, I think, that there was a massacre that happened somewhere in Texas. There were, like, I don't know, 20, 10 or 15 people that got killed.
Yes.
Um,
Yep.
and that was back in 1980. That was probably one of the first major incidents in a house of worship where a gunman came in and just started shooting people at random. And so ever since then, there have been there's a history of church violence. And you're probably familiar with the Charleston Nine right here in Charleston, where the Episcopal Church, they had a guy come in there. And I mean, I got goosebumps just talking about it, but one of the pastors, associate pastors, that was in the Bible study, he had a CWP, concealed weapons permit, but the main pastor did not allow the congregation to carry weapons into the church. And we all know that if he had been armed, yeah, that guy might have got off one or two shots, but he'd have been terminated, and 9 people wouldn't have had to lose their lives. And unfortunately, well, like you said, we want to be careful what we say, but we support our pastors, and they have a tough job as well, right? And they want to do what's best for the congregation, all the way around, and that includes safety and security for the church. And I got a pastor friend of mine that he's been there 26 years at this church here in Goose Creek, and he says, in the 26 years I've been here, we've never had a problem. And he said he just recently got his CWP, and he was like, I don't carry in the church. I'm going to let anybody else carry in the church. And I don't see why, after 26 years, I have to worry about somebody coming in here and starting trouble or shooting. And
Wow.
I'm like, I mean, from his viewpoint, from his standpoint, he's ex-army, he's got guns himself, and he's gone hunting in the past and goes fishing all the time. And so it's not like he doesn't like guns. It's not like he's not a supporter of the Second Amendment, because obviously he is. But unfortunately, there's a lot of pastors that have that mindset, and unfortunately, uh, they're a soft target, and they're just ripe for the picking for some lunatic to come in there and start shooting, or what have you. And so I absolutely, there's an educational uh, aspect of, you know, safety and security for churches, and we have to educate and make leadership in the church aware of the fact that we live in a very violent world right now, a very violent generation. I mean, the Jewish synagogues are under attack. All
Yep.
you gotta do is watch the news and you'll see where. But anyway, I'll quit rambling and let you continue with your presentation.
Yeah, you brought up a lot of good points there. If you look over at Carl Chin's stats, you look at from 2017 or from 2007 to 2017, there's over 2,000% increase in violence in churches. So just that
Right,
stat alone tells us, we've got to be doing the right things. There's so many biblical passages in scripture that describe protecting the flock and taking, keep watch over yourselves and all the flock. It doesn't say just part of the flock or a little bit of the flock or only the flock you like. It says all the flock. It
right,
talks in the Bible about if a man knew that the person was breaking in, it was done during the nighttime, then he's not, if there was bloodshed, he's okay by that. It's because we can't see what's coming sometimes, and we do have to be prepared. You guys have a great case in your backyard, like you said, the AME church being attacked like that in Charleston. That should tell every pastor in that area, you have a duty to protect. I mean, heck, even Nehemiah, when he was working on rebuilding the wall, had a sword in one hand while he's working with the other. There are just so many passages where God is just telling us, listen, I've given you something here, and you need to protect it.
right.
And then if you want to go to the other side, maybe the secular side of it, the church is a business, and yeah, it is a nonprofit. I get all that kind of stuff, but it is still a business. Any business in America where you're going to inject a certain number of the public into your business, you have a duty and responsibility to take care of their safety and their security while they're in your business. That's just the liability you take by allowing the public into your space.
Right.
So, when I hear these pastors in these churches saying, well, we're not going to do it because, well, that brings more risk. Well, you already have risk,
Right.
not doing anything just adds to the risk because the easiest thing for a first year law student to prove is, did you take the right steps necessary based on what you knew was probable or could happen in a
Right.
facility? That's why we have fire extinguishers. We don't have them because we wanted to spend extra money. We have them because that's a tool that
Sure.
we need for a specific job. It's the same way. It's the same
Absolutely.
reason we have first aid kits. It's the same reason we have smoke detectors. Same reason we have AED machines now, because we can predict and project on historical data what is needed in public spaces. So we put those things in there, and safety and security is always needed in public spaces.
Absolutely. Well, these, active shooters, lunatics, I don't care what do you want, whatever you want to call them, criminals, those people go to,
Cowards.
they cowards, yeah, they go to soft targets. You don't hear of an active shooter in a police department, right? Because they know as soon as they walk in the door and pull a gun, they're going to get their head blown off. They're not looking for resistance. They want the easiest, softest target they can hit, like hospitals, like churches. Church is probably number one on the list. And
Yeah.
medical clinics, what are some of the other soft targets? I'm probably not thinking straight here on soft targets, but there's a lot of soft targets out there, and that's where they go. Oh, malls, big malls,
Yeah.
shopping malls. They love to
Yeah.
go to those. And sure, shopping malls may have a couple of security guards or officers, patrolling, but depending on how huge the mall is, if you got two police officers, one on each end, somebody could go in there and still do a lot of damage until first responders actually show up and go in there and, you know, remedy the
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, so you look at it this way. 10 years ago, you could access all these public spaces very, very easily. Now, fast forward to where we are now, you can't go to a school the same way you did 10 years ago. You can't go to a
Right,
hospital. You can't go to the airport. You can't
right.
go any society the same way you did 10 years ago, except for churches. By and
Right.
large, the church nationwide, on average, has all doors open on Sunday, very limited safety and security, and you're still accessing it the same way you did 10 years ago. We just have not gotten the message yet. that, this is not the way to operate in protecting the flock.
Well, I believe that our pastor and some other pastors I've talked to, they want they want the church, the sanctuary, to be all inclusive and open and welcoming. We want to welcome everybody. We want to welcome the public with open arms. We want them to feel welcomed. We don't want stormtroopers standing around with M6, AR-15 slung over their shoulder or firearms. The security and the safety volunteers at our church, we have to conceal carry our weapons. They don't want, the only people they want the weapons to be open carry is police officers, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But that's, it's a two-pronged problem. I mean, when you have an environment like that where you open it to the public and anybody can just walk in,
Yeah.
there's always a small percentage or a median percentage of, well, there's an opportunity for some idiot to come in there and do something bad, you know? And so, yeah, we want to be all inclusive and we want to be welcoming. We want to have, a warm, we got first impressions team members that open the doors to the church and welcome people in, say good morning, welcome to Coastal Community Church, blah, blah, blah. And so we want that, but the flip side of that, our safety and security volunteers are also standing around strategically placed in the fellowship hall and the auditorium, the sanctuary, out in the parking lot, and we're watching. We're sheepdogs, and we are looking for telltale signs and body language that somebody is up to no good, right? We're looking at waistbands, we're looking at ankles, we're looking at coats, we're looking at backpacks, we're looking at we're looking for people that are watching us, right? And so that's what sheepdogs do. We try to keep the flock safe from the wolves of the world or the predators, right?
Yeah. And so in some of the points you brought up there, I think there is a real, I can understand the pastor's point of view. I like to put myself in the other person's shoes, especially if they're objecting to something that is so necessary, like the safety and security. So one of the easiest things, or maybe one of the best things we can do as the protector or the sheepdog, is to qualify what the objection is. Why is the pastor objecting to safety and security? And I think you said one of them was, it looks like Sunday special operations. That's wrong. And that will be very off-putting to everybody that walks into that church, except for a
Right,
select few, so it's not Sunday special operations. The people that attend church, they want to see safety and security. It's an expectation, especially the younger generations.
right,
As well as I do, we're not building churches and putting more butts in the seats by going out and finding more old people or more seasoned people. We're bringing in the younger generation,
right,
and they
exactly.
expect, wherever they go nowadays in their life, they expect to see safety and security. And so when they don't, and they're already at a point where they have enough reasons not to come to church, that may be the last one. Well, there's no
Sure,
safety and security here for me. There's none for my kids,
right,
and if we are doing it wrong, if we have the Sunday special operations, I think it does kind of compromise the core mission. If
sure,
if if we want to say the core mission of any church, and you can use whatever words you want, get out your thesaurus on this, but comfort, refuge, worship, and learning. I think most churches are trying to give all of that. And so it will be very off-putting to people if they're coming for comfort, refuge, worship, or learning, and they see the guy with the AR, they see, the guy with the earpieces and looks like the Secret Service. That's going to be off-putting to people, because
sure,
the reality of what we do, it's a servant's heart that leads us first.
sure,
It's the tactics and all that are great, and those are tools to have on our tool belt. The gun is another tool, because the best way to de-escalate somebody that has a gun is with another gun. But again, if we're going to compromise the core mission, then yeah, I can see why the pastor is saying, no, I don't want to do this.
right,
So that's where I try to put myself in the pastor's shoes. And so we need to have that servant's heart first. We do plans, policies, and procedures that are all written down. We train people to those. And again, our job is service first. Everybody on the safety and security team at my church, if you see something on the floor, you pick it up. If something spills, you go clean it up. If someone needs a bulletin, you go get it. It's all that service
Sure.
first, because you can still keep a watchful eye and still guard your sector while you're serving people.
Yeah, it's a ministry. It's a,
Yeah.
we're volunteering and we are, that's our niche.
Yep.
That's our talent, you know, most people that are on the safety and security team are ex-military, ex-law enforcement, current law enforcement. Uh, we have, the people that watch our cameras, they're regular churchgoers that they don't have any of that training or skills, but they have a servant's heart, and then they know what we're looking for, and they watch all the cameras, and especially in the children's ministry. And I typically work in Rover One, which is out in the parking lot, right?
Mhm.
So I stand out in the parking lot or sit in front of the church and keep a watchful eye on what's going on out there, what's coming into the church, but it is a ministry, and uh, it's a kind of a different mindset than when you put on your uniform and get in the patrol car, right?
Yeah.
It's a totally different mindset. I mean, you're still kind of employing, the knowledge that you have and the tactics that you have trained with to provide protection for the people in the church itself, right? But it's yeah, you have to, the pastors want us to find balance. They want us to be
Yeah.
welcoming, they want us to smile, they don't want us congregating together and talking, they want us to be spread out and doing what we're supposed to be doing, which is, you know, keeping everybody safe, but have a smile on your face and be nice, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
One of the great training videos out there, right, was Roadhouse with
yeah, be
Patrick.
nice.
Yeah, be
Absolutely.
nice, Patrick Swayze.
Don't take it personally. Just be nice. And what did
That's
he
right.
say? He said, be nice up until the point that you can't be nice anymore. And
That's
then
right.
that's when you take out the trash, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that's you're bringing on so many good points there, and we have to that goes to team selection.
Right,
By and large, what I see, I'd say greater than 50% of the time when I go help a church, whether I'm doing a risk assessment for them or doing training for their team, they started out as the guys that carry guns. That's all they started out as. They were
right.
just some guys who, had an affinity for the gun culture, and they wanted to show up to their church and be a sheepdog and a protector. And they were the guys that carried guns. And now, like you said, it has to be a ministry. It has to be professionalized, and that's why you see these pastors. I don't want guys walking around just as gunslingers, because
Right.
that does turn some people off, turn some people away, and it does maybe present a little bit more risk than the church is willing to take on at that point. So we professionalize it. We do plans, policies, procedures. We have training for all that. A risk assessment is one of the greatest things I can tell a church to do. If you're wondering where to start, or you've started and you're not feeling like you're growing in the right way and becoming a ministry, a risk assessment helps with that every step of the way. Because
Absolutely.
we can't protect what we don't know is missing, or that we're missing. And that gives you a nice roadmap of how to spend your time, money, and energy then going forward. Because if I come out to your church and you've got a bunch of guys walking around with guns, but you're an older congregation and you have no first aid skills, well, you're really not doing a good job for your church's safety, because
Right.
you're gonna have those crises, those medical crises like heart attack, stroke, things like that, more prevalent than the active shooter for sure.
You want to you want to select people with the right temperament, right?
Yes.
We
Yep.
had a we had a guy that he's current military here in Charleston, and he's a young fellow. And I remember when he first came on the security team or the safety team, he made some comments, and uh, like I said, he was a young fella. He was in shape like yourself, and he was looking for an opportunity to go hands on with somebody. And I was like,
Wow.
hold on, that's not. I mean, if in a pinch, if something turns violent, and you need somebody that's in shape and somebody that can go hands on with somebody without using lethal force, that's the kind of person that you definitely want on your team. However, you know, this is not this is not special ops, and this is
Right.
not, our purpose is not to go hands on with anybody unless it's just absolutely necessary. And so I had to take a fire extinguisher and kind of put him out a little bit. I was like,
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
calm down. This is not what we're looking for. And so he did. I just had to kind of take him aside and told him what our mission was and what our vision was and we were there for. And like I said, if poop hits the fan, then and you need to do that, then we'll call upon you to do that for sure. But now that's why we have uniformed police that, our instructions are that if anything goes down, the police officers are the ones that are to go hands on, and we're there to back them up and help them if they need us to, right? But ultimately, we're the eyes and the ears and the hands and feet of Jesus,
Yes.
being sheepdogs and providing coverage, an umbrella of eyes and ears to detect problems, right? And
Yeah.
so temperament is very important.
It is. And you guys are doing it the way that a lot of churches do. And I don't have a problem with it, but just a different thought process is eh, a lot of churches that I work with, they have the prior military, prior law enforcement, or current law enforcement, current military, and they seek these guys out to be on the team. And that's great. I love it because they do have a servant's heart, and they have different skills and different backgrounds. But when I think about it, if we look at it, they have what I call they have depth of knowledge, right? So in
Sure.
their specific role, whether it's law enforcement, military, they have a depth of knowledge for their job. And so cops know criminals, and we know how to deal with criminals, and we can find criminals, and that's great. That's our depth of knowledge. We know what the law is. We know it's written in black and white. We know how to enforce it. But for the church protector, a lot of times what I like to look at is a breadth of knowledge, more wide. What are your worldly experiences? It's great if you have a prior military background, but you don't need that to necessarily serve on my team. What is your breadth of knowledge? Because a breadth of knowledge allows you to talk to a wider group of people, and talking is our greatest tool that we have. Just more
Right.
not as important as listening, but right there, right behind it. Listening is the best tool we have. Then talking to people, being able to de-escalate them is the second greatest tool that we have on our tool belt. And when you have guys,
Absolutely.
they have a breadth of knowledge versus that depth of knowledge, you get a more well-rounded cadre of guys. So it's important that we select the right team members for our teams.
That's excellent. Yes, absolutely. I guess you could say not only do they need to have the right temperament, you don't want somebody that's a hothead. You want somebody that can, like when I went through the law enforcement academy in Houston, Texas, back in 1982, they told us in training that you can always go from nice to ugly back to nice, but you can never start out as an asshole and then decide to
Yeah.
become a good cop, right?
Yeah.
And they also said that you are to command respect, but not demand it, right?
Yes.
So the
Yep.
uniform does a lot of that for commanding respect, but how
Yeah.
you handle yourself in the general public, how you treat people is what really commands that respect. And so that's the kind of mindset we want in church. Is like we're there to, like I said, to be the hands and feet of Jesus and to greet people and make them feel welcome and to serve them in whatever capacity that we can do, right? Within the realm of the church, right? If people are hungry, we take them to the food pantry. They need a cup of coffee and a donut, but while they're going into the church, if they're hungry, right? They need
Yep.
clothing, we provide clothing. We help the other parts of the church provide that help to the people that are coming, because that's what the church is all about. That we want to show people the love of Jesus, right? That's why the
Yep.
church is there, is to bring people in off the street. We all need Christ. We all need Jesus. And I know
Mhm.
this may not set well with some of my listeners, but the purpose of the church is to be the hands and feet of Christ and to love them unconditionally, right?
Yep.
Uh, so that's all part of being on the safety and security team at church. We need our team members to be Christians. We need for them
Yeah.
to be ministers of the gospel and to be willing to minister to the people that they run across while they're volunteering.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're talking about going hands-on. I think, you know, even in law enforcement, the number of times I've had to go hands-on, there are certain circumstances where you jump out of the car and you have to. But there's so many
Sure.
circumstances where if you really look at it, there had to be a lot of failures in a process, a plan, or a policy that failed before you had to go hands-on, right?
Right.
So that's the kind of way I look at it. How can we de-escalate somebody? And realistically, the people that are in crisis in our church, they 98% of the time, maybe even 99, they want to be heard. Someone has
Right.
not listened to them at the degree and the level they want or they need. And that's what
Right.
they want. They want someone to listen and just hear what they're saying and then repeat back, this is what I've heard, or this is what you're saying. And that can de-escalate somebody like nothing else. Just letting
Right.
someone speak and
That's
and
right.
shutting your mouth for a minute. I mean, that's
Right.
that's a fantastic skill to have for anybody on the church safety and security team or in life in general.
Sure. I I do IT support, and the first 40% of my contact with a person that's pissed off because their computer's not working and they got a project that's due, they got a meeting in 5 minutes and crap's not working. They're frustrated and they're angry and they want to know that I'm there and that I care and that I'm there to help them. And 90% of the time, the biggest way I can show them that I care is just by keeping my mouth shut and letting them vent. Just letting them
Yeah.
tell me what the problem is. And then after I've let them blow some steam, then I can say, okay, I understand what you're saying. This is what I think you said your problem is. These are the symptoms. I'm here to help you. Let me help you. And then
Yep.
when you do that, they get out of the way and let you help them.
Yeah. That's it. That's it. That's one of the biggest. When I come out and teach, that's one of the biggest things. That and I teach it in law enforcement too, is customer service.
Right.
I don't, I just a slight tangent, if I may. I think that's where we get some of the trouble we're having in the law enforcement community, is that we've lost our customer because we haven't met their customer needs over the years. We've forced our service on them, and we haven't listened to how they've modified, how they've changed, how they've pivoted, and we haven't pivoted with them. We just said we're rigid. You're gonna get what we give you, and that's it. And that's
Right.
sad. We are in the customer service business in law enforcement. We're in the customer service business in church safety and security too.
That's right. Absolutely. So I'm looking at your outline here. You have like 10 talking points. And I think to a large degree we've touched a little bit on a lot of this
Yep.
already, but is there any one of these points that you want to talk specifically about?
Yeah, I do. I just want to bring back up, the need for risk assessments, and this is especially true if you're going to try to get one of the federal grants. You're going to need to have a risk assessment. But I found that to be so hugely beneficial, not only to my church in knowing where to put our time, money, and energy, and letting the pastors know, because from a disinterested third party that's specially trained in this and specific for churches, they come in and they write you a roadmap. Any risk assessment I've ever written it starts around 50 pages and they only get bigger from there. And it's not about finding out what you're doing wrong as much as it is showcasing what you do right and then exposing gaps and opportunities that you may not even see.
Right.
Um, for the church leaders out there, it's great because it's written. And now you have that roadmap, like I said, that says, hey, if we do nothing based on this risk assessment, then we can accept 100% liability. However, if we start making some changes, then we will start seeing lowered liability in all of this. And
Right.
a safe and secure church is a growing church. That's just simple math. And then investing in your team and their training. whether it's just small, a little kind of what I call toolbox training or tailgate training once a month. Got the
Right,
team all there. Hey, let's cover this real quick. Here's how we're going to handle exits. Here's how we handle an AED, whatever that is. Set that up on a 12-month schedule, so next month when you're going to have your training, what it's going to be on, and then have at least one big training every year. I tell people all the time, if you're gonna carry a gun in church, if you're gonna carry a firearm in church, then you need specific training for that. The license to carry or the CCW or whatever the state has is not even a standard. That's the lowest bar standard the state set just for
right,
everybody to be able to carry. And if you think
right.
about it, it's only for personal defense. It's not for defense of others necessarily. So invest in that. We do a 2-day training, but you can do however many you want, but invest in something like that too annually, because if you're going to, again, carry a tool like a firearm in church, then you want specific specialty training for that. And you want to make sure your insurance company is going to insure that for you.
One of the areas of improvement, or I guess you say, I don't know I don't know how to term this, but you can fill in the blank for me. But one of my concerns at our house of worship is that our pastor is, he's certainly very Second Amendment oriented, and he believes in gun rights, right? He agrees in all of that. He actually goes to a pastor's meet and greet once a month. It's in Florida, I think. And all the pastors from all the different non-denominational churches, or whoever, right? It may not even be non-denominational. I don't know, but I know he has a, training that he goes to once a month. And they all are very supportive of church security and safety. And so if he knows you in the church, I don't know I don't know if liking you or has anything to do with it, but if he feels safe with you carrying in the church, carrying concealed, you have to prove that you have a CWP, right? They have to keep that on. I think they keep a record of the person that has a CWP, and he gives them permission to carry. Well, that's all great and fine, but we have a volunteer in the auditorium. It's a basketball auditorium that, we put chairs out on Sunday, pull them up, Sunday night, and then local schools and stuff come over and use the basketball court for their stuff. Uh, anyway, one of my concerns is that we get into a sticky situation in the sanctuary auditorium, and we have all those people that have permission to carry a weapon. And
Yeah.
I don't volunteer in the auditorium because I'm worried that I'm gonna get shot by one of my church family, right? And
Yeah.
and I'm like, I've voiced this on several occasions in some of our meetings, and I'm like, that's just an accident waiting to happen, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah. Yep.
People mean well. Let's say you have an active shooter and somebody's going after the pastor, and the safety team is there to remedy that situation. The police officers are going to get involved. We're going to back them up. And if you got people in the congregation pulling their weapons, all of a sudden you got chaos, and
Yep.
you know as well as I do, when every round out of your weapon is a little attorney,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It has an
And
attorney attached to it.
and not only that, but nobody wants to hurt anybody except for the bad guy, right?
Right.
We want to remediate that situation so they can't hurt anybody. But if somebody in the congregation starts with goodwill, they're trying to help you do that, and you get in their way, all of a sudden you got innocent people that are going to get hit. So
Yep.
I just told my team leader, I said, look, dude, I'll be out in the parking lot, or I'll stand in the fellowship. I'll do Rover 2 and stand in the fellowship hall where there's exits, right? But I'm not gonna get cornered in the back of that auditorium and all hell breaks loose. And I'm like, no, that's a
Yeah.
tactical issue that I'm not willing to navigate.
Yeah, I mean, all you have to do is pull up the video from the white settlement shooting here in Texas. right after Jack Wilson takes the shot, you look around the room, there's 14 to 16 other guns in people's hands. No sense of the four cardinal rules of gun safety going on, pointed at the back of
Oh,
people,
oh my God.
fingers in the trigger guard. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Was he the guy that shot that guy like at 50 feet?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I remember reading that story. I didn't know about the 15 other people that were holding firearms.
Well, it is the United States of Texas. We do like our guns out here, but
Yeah.
yeah, there's so many other people have guns out in that sanctuary at that point, and then you can also see how the congregation reacted because you got people that are laying on the floor, you got people standing up like a groundhog, you got people that are crouched down. It's
Oh my
it's
God.
it's a it's a
It was
great
chaos, I'm sure.
illustration. It's a great illustration of what you can expect. And the pastor just selecting who he thinks is great is one thing. And I gotta give it to the pastors. They don't get any of this training when they go to divinity school, whatever school they go to. They don't get any of this
Sure.
training on safety and security.
Absolutely not. No.
And really, it's not their job. It's their job to know that they need it and know that they have the right people in charge to take care of it. And then we
Right.
set it like a ministry. We provide funds to it like we do any other ministry, whether it's worship music or whatever. They certainly get funds for their instruments and all that. So why don't we get the funds that we need for bullets when we qualify? Why don't we have we got to make sure we have the right insurance. We have
Sure.
qualified people on the team. All those things go into it. Just, given the hamana, you're good to go is certainly something I see around the nation, but that's
Yeah.
such a poor barrier to who should be carrying and who shouldn't.
Yeah. I just, I'm thinking about my hide and I stay out of it.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I got the right amount of holes in my body. I don't need any extra.
All right. Absolutely. And I'm all for, I'm all for them being given permission to carry, but I'm like, can we at least can we like create a directory with their name and their picture so that we can familiarize ourselves with who's carrying and who isn't, who's
Yeah,
legally carrying in there? And
yeah.
well, every time I say that, it gets shot down. I'm like, okay,
Yeah, it is a delicate balance. The church has to figure out what they're going to allow. And listen, if a church just says unless you're on our safety team, you can't carry, that will be off-putting to some people, and you'll lose some attendees because of that. But is it
sure,
is it the right thing to do? I mean, every church has to make their own decision on that, theologically and litigiously.
right. Well, and that's another thing that we have to discuss, and is something that's probably on the forefront of the pastor's mind is we live not only in a violent world, but we live in a world that's progressively, full of litigation, and
Yep.
you know you the church leadership, uh, they take a lot of their guidance, I guess, from their insurance company. Their insurance companies, you know, will determine how much liability they're willing to underwrite, right? And
Yes. Yep.
they set a lot of those standards as to, okay, if you have law enforcement on hand, trained law enforcement, blah blah blah, then we'll underwrite this amount of liability or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Well, it is, you bring up a good point. I've been chipping away at this for years and just haven't gotten anywhere up the hill yet, hardly. It is incumbent upon the insurance companies too, because the insurance companies just bank on you never having a claim. And so it's a roll of the dice for them every Sunday, every time you're open, every time people are in your place, they roll the dice and said these people aren't going to have a claim. And the ones or twos that do have a claim, they're willing to pay those off, and they'll just raise everybody's premium next year if it
right.
goes on a certain point.
Hey,
I think
I got somebody knocking on my door. Just keep talking.
okay, it's incumbent upon the church to say we're not going to accept just you giving us insurance. We want to make sure that we have good plans, policies, and procedures in place that you will insure, and we have good people that on our team that we've qualified and we've done background checks on that you will insure. That's really what the critical portion is.
You're gonna start here and work your way around. So let me go ahead and finish this episode. I'm sorry, I'm back.
No, you're good to go, brother.
I got a handyman here to run my Ethernet cable from the back of my cable modem into my office. I got it just laying on the floor like a 50-foot Ethernet cable. I'm like,
Well,
that's a tripping hazard. We need to get that thing glued to the baseboard or something.
yeah, good thing you're not subject to OSHA in your own house.
Right. Well, and this is not a professional podcast, so for the viewers out there that are going, oh, just to get up and walk away from the camera like that. I'm like, well,
Yeah,
just deal
life
with
happens. Life happens,
it.
people.
Oh, they may not care, you know. That's why I said keep talking to fill the
Yeah, yeah.
fill the space, or we could have said, okay, we're gonna take a smoke break. We'll be right back. Give us about 5 minutes. We'll be back to the turn on a video or something.
Yeah.
But
When you
anyway,
have one of your sponsors come in.
uh, I need to get some sponsors, actually. You
Yeah.
know, I have a lot of people are like, you need to monetize your podcast. And I'm like, this is a hobby. I do it for free. I do it to provide value and education in the different areas that, Liberty and Gun Rights podcast. And, it's a perfect niche for me, as well as the other one did I tell you about the parenting adult children?
Yes, yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
So that's also kind of a ministry, and it's a life experience. If you're a parent, it's a life experience that we've lived
Yeah.
through and had some successes. And I'm happy to say that. And so I want to pass that along to other people. I want to share my life experiences
Yeah.
with other
Well,
people
I
so
mean,
that,
parents nowadays have to overcome two major things, the internet and the cell phone.
yeah,
And you've got to
technology,
bypass,
period.
yeah, you've
Technology,
got to
period.
bypass that to really reach
Yeah,
your children nowadays.
right. All right.
Well, brother, I've had a great time.
Yeah, I think this podcast episode is, I think we really kind of hit it off and really interacted very well, and the conversation
Yeah.
flowed, and we both have liberty and gun rights as a special interest, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate your service to the country, and I appreciate your service in law enforcement, and the things that you're doing for houses of worship, safety and security, and uh, we could probably at some point do another episode and talk some more about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, we can do it live and get some people, sending in some questions and just getting things answered live too.
Yeah,
People like those as well.
uh, I host this on several locations, but Spotify is one of the biggest ones,
Yeah.
and they provide you you get a question. How did you like the podcast or whatever? And I always try to ask them a specific question about centered around the content of the episode, and then I create a poll asking questions that people can actually select yes, no, maybe, whatever.
Yep.
And so engagement, getting subscribers to keep coming back. So you got to have regular content. You got to keep their attention, right? Because
Yep.
you're competing with a lot of podcasts. There's thousands of podcasts out there, right? And so,
Oh, yeah.
I have to network with other podcasters. I'm on Facebook, I'm on social media, advertising the podcast and getting people, and Liberty and Gun Rights podcast has been relatively easy to get guest speakers like yourself, because there's so many people that are, passionate about the Second Amendment, passionate
Yep.
about gun rights and liberty, and talking about church security. That's just right up our alley, and it's very much in line with the core values of this podcast. And
Yeah, absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
I got another guy in our church security Facebook group that wants to come on and talk too, and so I'm gonna let him do that.
Was it
I'm
Simon?
sure we'll talk about maybe a lot of the same things that we've talked about, but he'll probably have maybe a different perspective,
Yeah.
about things. And that's another thing that I would like to get on this podcast is um, people with different perspectives. right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And
I don't profess to know everything. I just know a little about a lot.
one of the things that in the Second Amendment community, you'll hear people make statements like, "Oh, liberals hate guns in the Second Amendment," or "Democrats hate guns in the Second Amendment," and they'll actually type that out and leave it as a message. And I've had some Democrats come back and go, "Hey, I'm a Democrat from a long time, and I'm a hunter. I own guns. I believe in the Second Amendment. So don't be painting me with that brush because it's not true." And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a different perspective, and we shouldn't be pigeonholing people, and you got to be
Nah,
careful about that.
we've forgotten how to talk to one another. It's a
Right,
skill. It seems like it's perishable nowadays.
right.
Yep.
Well, Guy, thanks for coming on and sharing your expertise and knowledge with regards to security and safety and houses of worship. Um,
Yeah, my pleasure, James. I had a great time.
and I am looking for, oh, here we go. Conclusion statement. Told you it's not professional.
It's on its
I
way,
have
though.
to, I have to use notes. I got to keep track of stuff. So anyway, thank you for the privilege of your time. I'm speaking to our audience here. Our podcast is hosted on Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Be sure to share our podcast with your Second Amendment friends, family, co-workers, and church members. You can contact us at Liberty Gun Rights Podcast at proton.me. That's Liberty Gun Rights Podcast at proton.me. Thank you for listening, and you have a good day.